Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back. I'm back finally with another installment, another trip to Tromaville. If you haven't seen my first video on Troma, be sure to check that out. But for a very quick little intro for Troma. So anyways, Troma has been around for about 50 years, and it's one of the longest running indie film companies, which has made some very interesting films, let's say. They've been categorized in many ways, such as disgusting, offensive, strange, disturbing, and disruptive. But in my previous video, I covered revisiting The Toxic Avenger and Class of Nukem High, which came about after watching the documentary VHS Massacre. So be sure to stick around to the end of the video if you want to see the link to my previous Troma video and the one for VHS Massacre and VHS Massacre 2. While revisiting them, Toxic Avenger and Class of Nukem High, I ended up checking out the rest of them, all the sequels that they had, which I'd never seen before. I've had a very good time, with this content, and an even greater time getting to meet Lloyd and a lot of the Troma team and several Troma fans at the Spooky Empire Mayhem convention a few months back. So, right when I got home from that convention, I kind of dived back in to check out more of their content, and that brings us to this video where I touch on 5 other films that I've checked out. So here we go. For the first one, Sergeant Kabuki Man, NYPD. The synopsis is a streetwise New York police officer transforms into the world's most unusual superhero. So this one feels like just pure comedy over anything else. Probably the funniest and cheesiest of the films I've checked out so far. I mean, this man literally just turns into a Kabuki Man to fight crime. There's a lot of fun in this one. It's very light, and I could even see purchasing the Blu-ray one day to kind of have on hand, like I did with the Toxic Avenger films, just to kind of add it to the collection and everything, just so I can own my own edition. Second one of these is Tromeo and Juliet. The synopsis is: Tromeo, a filmmaker, falls in love with Juliet, the daughter of a former partner who tried to steal his business from him. This is written in part by James Gunn and stars, among others, Sean Gunn. Now, I'd worked on the auteur theory with Sean, and we considered him to kind of be a star on that set, among others, like Rachel True was in that as well, and Natasha Lyonne and Armin Shimmerman. But since he was like in a Troma film, and many of us on the crew had seen a few Troma films growing up, we really considered him to kind of like be our star. As for this title, Tromeo and Juliet, I think it was alright, but I think I need to do a rewatch of it. I've had issues recently remembering character names when I'm watching something. It's some sort of memory issue left over from COVID, which is slowly getting better, but that's another story that has nothing to do with movies at all, much less with Troma. So anyways, if you're familiar with Romeo and Juliet, like plays, remakes, reimaginings, inspired works, different films and everything, the names are very important to the story. So if you're losing track of what's going on between those two sides, it's kind of hard to follow. But, I thought this one was okay, even though I was having a hard time remembering the names and really getting into it. I am going to do a rewatch of this one someday because it definitely seemed like it's put together well, and it did have some funny beats throughout. Third one is Troma's War. Synopsis for this one: a group of assorted Americans survive a plane crash in a Caribbean island and discover it is infested with crawling snakes and other venomous beasts. Even worse, terrorists are preparing a full-out war on America with a biological weapon. So that sounds crazy, right? It is. It feels like total 80s action parody with a slathering of Troma on top. Lots of violence, lots of gore, some nudity. We get tons of action in this, and some really absurd characters and situations. Definitely worth checking out. Fourth one on this is Poultrygeist, The Chicken Dead. This one is a serious drama. No, I'm kidding. This one I could not take serious in any way, and I mean that in a really great way. This one was incredibly strange and fun, kind of like horror comedy of sorts. Lots of really gross stuff in it going on. Crazy stereotype jokes, really silly concepts. There's even a musical number that they throw into this one. And this is the film where, as you may have seen in my previous Troma video, but I'll report here, Robbie Vamps, I met her during this while waiting in line. She's wearing this costume, inspired by the movie. And I will link to her Instagram in the description if interested. And speaking of which, every time I see a picture of her now on Instagram, it looks strange because I met her with a beak on. So it's kind of weird for me to see that she has a real human face underneath that. Very awesome person, and it was a very awesome time in that line. You spent some time with her and all the other Troma fans, and this film, Poultrygeist, Poltergeist was a lot of fun, really strange stuff worth checking out. But finally, Father's Day. So the synopsis for this one, which is film number 5 on this list, is a murderer, a priest, and a delinquent try to bring down a father-killing madman. So this one, which I watched on Father's Day, so it's been a little while, was perhaps, well, I'll say it definitely is the strangest and grossest of the Troma films I've seen so far. There is graphic detail on these killings that this madman has been doing. Tons of violence. I know I've said that on previous installments, but this one really goes over the top, especially with the gore. They throw in a lot of nudity as well. Got a little bit of like comedy thrown in, but it's mainly just this really gritty, violent gore film that is truly bizarre and strays in directions one can likely not even guess. And while I was enjoying it thoroughly the entire time, just overall the entire film, part of me was watching it simply in amazement of the weird craziness that they were throwing in our faces, and it was just a really interesting journey as that story had unfolded. And in fact, it was so strange and so bizarre and so gross, I decided afterward to take a little break from some Troma for a bit, get back into some other films for a little while, kind of reset the brain and keep me from this level of insanity, because once I go down that Troma rabbit hole, I stay in those rabbit holes for a while. Hence why I watched 4 Toxic Avenger movies and all of the Class of Nukem High, Return to Nukem High films within about a 1 or 2 week period. But anyways, there you have it. Those 5 films. You got our Romeo and Juliet, Troma's War, Poltergeist, The Chicken Dead, got Father's Day, and the one that I feel is the most accessible and the most fun and, just overall a great time, that Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD. But what are your thoughts if you've seen any of these? Or Troma in general? Are there any specific titles that you are a fan of and would recommend? Go ahead and leave a comment down below and let's get that conversation going. If you have not seen any of these and have the curiosity, head on over to Troma Now, to the Troma Now app, and sign up. They usually have like some free trials for either a free week or a free month, and even on top of that, it's only like $5 a month anyways. So, pop in, check some out, and see what you think. Anyways, that's all I got for this quick little video here. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like, and if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Hit that little button and then like the little bell somewhere on there. And typically I cover a lot of like horror stuff and older 80s films, or you can just check out some of the back catalog and see if this is a channel that you want to subscribe to, and check out more of my content, share it all around, and stick around to the end, which I'm thanking you for right now because it really does help out quite a bit. Anyways, that's all I got for this one, and I will see you in the next one.